So, guten Morgen, willkommen bei CALLERLAB, der 42. Kongress in Springfield, Missouri. Heute ist der 31. März, es ist Dienstag und wir sind hier, um Lehrmethoden aus Übersee zu machen. For those who didn't understand that, and that's kind of what your new people may hear if you come in overseas, I said, good morning and welcome to the 42nd CALLERLAB Convention in Springfield, Missouri. Today is Tuesday, March 31st, and this is the session for overseas teaching styles. My name is Don Casper. I'm from Germany. This session is being recorded. If you have any questions, we will have Q&A later. Please use the hand mic. And my two panelists are, ladies first, from Zurich, Switzerland. This is Jeannette Staeuble. And from Tokyo, Japan, this is Masaru Wada. And he's going to be assisted by his translator, Takozaki. Welcome, thank you for being here. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Jeannette first. Most of our stuff overlaps, so I'll let Jeannette speak first, then Masaru, and then I will add my little shtick and maybe talk about something Jeannette didn't cover in hers. So without further ado, here's Jeannette Staeuble.
Okay, thank you, Don. Yeah, we have handouts here after the session. Should be enough for everybody to take. I think it's one of the special things for, actually I think still stand up, it's easier standing up, is that everybody, especially in our area and also for Japan, understands English. Especially in Switzerland, people in my age and higher, so from 40, 50, 60, have not necessarily learned English in schools. The younger generations now, they learn English in school. But the older generation do not speak and understand English. So for non-English speaker, words like circle, if you say circle left, it doesn't mean anything for them. Right? If you ever come to England, to the States, I say circle left, you know what to do. Dancer, who does not speak English, don't know circle, don't know turn. Around one or half, or the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, doesn't have any meaning at all. And they have to learn, the dancers have to learn those English keywords. They have to learn turn. They have to learn the numbers 1, 2, actually 2, 7, because 8 chains through is the 8. So they have to know these numbers. And also, if a caller comes and he calls like heads, or he says couples 1 and 3, or even say couple first and third, that's totally different. Men, boys, gentlemen, gents, whatever else. So if callers come from the States to our place, it might be difficult for the dancers because they learned men and boys. They never heard gentlemen. Maybe gentlemen, but they have not heard gents. The pretty ones. And callers who use directional calls are very hard to understand. I mean, if they know square through, they know the calls, the commands. But if a caller use like element left, go forward 2, turn back 1, next one full around, and this red hot ice cold. All traditional stuff is very, very difficult if a dancer does not know English. And also if a caller uses kind of filler words, it's very different to distinguish for a dancer who does not speak the language. Head square through, 4 hands and around in a ring. You go with the corner lady, do-sa-do, swing through, get it 2 by 2. To get out the square through, the do-sa-do, the swing through. If you do a lot of talking in between. We, on the other hand, need to try to teach them that. But that's just how, if you come to our country and we do like it, Don did the introduction in German. You maybe did not understand the word. What we need to do, and we actually do, is teach them that. And what we also have a problem we have, that not all callers speak English. And that's a different coin too. So this is why we on the word of translating the definitions. So the callers which do not understand English that well have another source to go to, because the definitions, they get very thorough, but also get more complex and complicated. That's the two things. So the language issue I think is a big one. And also the callers who do not speak English still need to teach enough English to the dancers so they understand what they have to do later on when they go out and dance. Especially also when they go out and dance to an American or English caller. Or just a caller. The common language is English. If a caller from Sweden comes to our area, our common language is English. And that's a square dance language, which is actually a nice thing. Actually, we can dance together even if we don't speak each other's language. And I think that's very nice. Yeah, I think I'll maybe stay on language and let you later on cover the other aspect. So now, when we teach dancers, I try to teach concepts whenever possible. I try to, like, run has an active and inactive part. The active part does the run around the inactive. The inactive just goes sideways. I try to teach it that way. Maybe if you speak English, run makes sense to you. Yeah, maybe. But we need to teach the concepts. In trade is always exchange places. And you look the other way. So we try to teach conceptual. We teach the reverse is a concept. If you do a flutter wheel, you know the flutter wheel is the right-sided dancer with the right hand, goes in. So the reverse concept is actually the left-sided dancer with the left hand, goes in.
So when you're explaining this, you're going to use like 95%. Hi, it's Rich. I was just wondering how much of your native language are you using in your classes? I mean, it's exclusively when you're teaching, yes?
I mean, it doesn't make sense for me, I think, to talk to them in English. I might try to do that for a gimmick for a short time, but I'll talk to them in German, but I try really to use the English keywords. So if I'll talk about trade, I say we have active dancers. Yeah, I might say that we have in German that we haben aktive, we have active dancers. I always use both words in the beginning, so they learn the word active, and they learn also the word boys, girls, centers, ends. And I use the word centers. I would never say centers in German. For instance, if I teach them centers trade, I would never say the inneren. Inneren is the word for centers. I would never say the inneren trade. It doesn't make sense at all. They learn the word centers. But at some point, I need to teach them centers mean the centers. How do you say this in English? So I need to teach them that, but I talk to them in my language because it really doesn't make sense to talk to them in English. They look at me and say, "Are you crazy?" Yeah, another.
Do people consider it a benefit to actually be learning English? Is that an underlying little bonus they get?
If I may answer that question, that was Rich Reel, by the way. If I may answer that question, I think it's a definite bonus to them. But we're not teaching English. We're teaching very little English. We're teaching square dancing as the language. But they can pick up things like how to put a sentence together, perhaps, or face in. Things like that. They need to pick up on the keywords, and the more, at least what I do in Germany, I start with just throwing out the calls and ignoring everything, all the filler words, and I add more and more, and then they pick up on those too. They pick up on those too.
Yeah, so you need to teach the dancers to learn to learn to listen.
Yeah, and learning square dancing does not mean they're going to go out and be able to hold an English conversation with someone on the street corner, obviously. And even in England, I think that's the case. Yeah.
Tom Rayner from Tokyo. So I'm relatively new to square dancing the last 4 to 5 years. I learned basic and mainstream in Germany, and I learned plus in Japan, right? So from my perspective, it was very helpful for me, and the instructors were able to provide it. They were both native speaking instructors, were resources that I could access on the internet that were in my language, right? So that, because a lot of times, though the calls are in English, the explanations are in the local language, right? So you need to have that other resource that's in your own language if you don't speak the native language to help you out with that.
Actually, as we will come to that too, because that's one of the help we do. The good thing, actually, if I have an English dancer in my area. I'm happy about, because then that's the reason for me to talk also to the dancers in English. Unfortunately, I had it once. Once I had it. We had an English man from the States learning square dance. So I really used that to use more English while talking. So use both languages, so it was helpful. But it doesn't work if I have just only native Swiss people there that I talk to them in English. And yeah, so this is one of the things really we give them resources in German. We have a booklet, different vendors or Anbieter. Providers, thank you, different providers who provide books. Or we have online resources where you have the definitions for the dancers now in German, because the dancers, they don't need to know the total definitions. We need to teach them by definition, but we can help them with diagrams, with booklets, with all the stuff. And I think that's one of the things we need to help them. Like the same thing, we need to teach them the keywords and the directional calls, so they survive in an environment when an English caller comes over and does some calling for the dancers, because we want that they do that. We want that they enjoy the English callers, but they have to learn to listen to that. So yeah, we need to teach them. First of all, like Don said before, we start with teaching, we just use the calls. And later on, myself, I'm using a bit more filler words. I use chanting. So they have to learn to listen. We also have, in the beginning, it's the same thing maybe in the States. When you start, you maybe even have the tempo a little slowed down. You give them more time for the calls. You need to do that, because if they heard the first time they do a spin the top, they can't do that in 8 beats. They need more thinking time. And later on, it just goes on and they get quicker with it. And the same thing, we need to teach them that. I mean, that's something you don't have here. They just speak the English language. And we have to, I myself in my teaching order, also in my teaching, say, checklist, there has words like centers, ends. I teach them, I check that. So I'm sure they learn this terminology. Yeah, go ahead.
And I'd like to just interject here. Jeannette is talking about Switzerland, of course, where she herself does the teaching and has the experience with about 6 clubs that are in Switzerland, right? In Germany, there are over 500 clubs, and most of our callers are local nationals. Most of the clubs started with Americans back in the days of the armed forces being very present in Germany. However, there were, as you may know, Germany was divided into zones after World War II. So in the British zone, we had British callers. Up in northwest Germany, up in Dortmund, up in that area, it was mostly British that kept the square dancing thing alive. And down in southwest where I am, or in Bavaria, it was the Americans, because that was the American zone of Germany. As of course the military has moved out, we don't have that anymore. And back in 1970s, everything was turned over to be a German organization that was not connected with the U.S. in any way, shape, or form. However, square dancing was still the CALLERLAB definitions at the time. But we saw a lot more native callers come into presence and a lot more clubs being formed where there really was no one speaking English. In the Czech Republic, former Czechoslovakia, they learned by buying records that callers weren't using anymore, or callers were donating because it was just growing there. So it was not uncommon to hear something like Let It Snow, Let It Snow in the middle of July, because they just liked that music. They didn't know what they were singing. They liked the music and they did it. And I've been to a Czech convention in 1999 in Prague. I don't speak Czech. I can read some of it, but it was a new situation for me. I realized what some of the Germans were going through with my teaching, because I got there and everything was just in Czech. Just in Czech. They made no attempt to do anything in English. Just in Czech. I mean, I could pick out the square dance. I knew that, and even some of the patter filler, but they were teaching and explaining in Czech. But because I knew square dancing, I was able to get by. And they and the next country I'd like to just speak briefly about. They do a lot of basic, because they say that is a level, and they had an extra basic hall which was packed to the gills. and mainstream hall and plus, and they do all the levels there in the Czech Republic. And the same thing with Sweden, which is another country that I'd like to talk about, though I've never been there myself. I know in Sweden it was due a lot because there were callers coming in from the United States that helped build up the Swedish program. Some of the Swedish members were and still are members of CALLERLAB, so they got the first-hand information and were able to pass that down. And really, the Swedish and Czech dancers, they learned to dance by definition because that's the material they got, CALLERLAB definitions. Now in Russia, which is just starting now, most of that has been set up because German callers have gone in there and set up weekends and helped them build square dancing up and train callers how to call. So a lot of that is a German influence in Russia. But for Sweden and Czech Republic, it really started right away from CALLERLAB because that's the printed material, the records, the backside of the records that they got, that's what they used to learn square dancing there.
Maybe add something on Sweden, but it's they speak good English because they have the films they watch a TV programs. The films are normally in the original language with subtitles. So actually Swedish people don't have the problem with the language so much than maybe Czech has and we have, because I think even they learn it in school. I just really wanted and liked it when I was there. I could watch a film there because it was in English and not in Swedish, because I don't understand Swedish at all. And if you go to Sweden, a lot of them speak English. So with English you get through talking. But Don said what I like too, it's maybe the difference a little bit in culture I think we have, and maybe that's the difference also in teaching, because it's not our hobby, it's not our culture, because we are not Americans. We take it much, much more serious and thorough in learning the calls. I think that's something really, it differs between the teaching also here, maybe than to our place. Because we also teach always by definition, because we have only the definitions and we need to translate them kind of literally. So we teach even stronger by definitions because it's not our culture.
And we do have printed materials available. We do have the mainstream levels and plus levels, and even round dancing has been translated into German, so they can get a printed book as soon as they sign up for the class. This book will be part of your curriculum. You will get that. You can study that. You will see what is coming up. And that book does not only have the figures and the definitions, it also says something about the history of square dancing, the dress for square dancing, the common courtesy, the etiquette of square dancing. You know, don't leave a square, et cetera, don't walk through a square, all that other stuff. So they do get a full picture of what square dancing then really is in Germany. Here I can only speak for Germany.
Yeah, we have the same resources, so at least. Maybe going back to the teaching thing, we had to change a little teaching order, which actually now a lot of them is applied to. There was time when there was swing throughs before trade. Now we changed. But for our dancer who doesn't speak English, turn half by the right. When you can use the word trade instead, trade by the right. Trade by the left. We really actually changed the teaching order. So I used trade much before swing through, because later on I could go on and say, okay, swing through is by the right hand trade, by the left hand trade, if you can. So that's, although with the same thing with spin the top and cast off 3/4. Now it's the same thing in the teaching order, but before it was the other way around. I taught the cast off 3/4 first, because then I can use common terms for the dancers. They don't have to learn turn by the centers turn 3/4, and this was the definition. It's easier for them if I say, okay, you do a cast of 3/4 in the middle. So, and what we also have to do, when trade run and circulates, if you don't know the language, it somehow sound a little familiar. They're all short names. Different than spin chain through is a long name, but trade and run is very short. So I normally put a lot of time between these calls because of that, it doesn't make sense to them, so you first use trade, and then there's some time before run comes. And maybe actually, because we used this couple circulate now early, actually we even stop with circulate this time. But then go ahead that way. So, yeah, a lot of calls, if they sound similar, it makes it more difficult for the
But
dancers.
Be careful of saying things then like boys run around the girls, girls run around the boys, because the dancers are going, you said boys, you said girls, who do you want? Right? Yeah. Boys run. Girls run. Pause.
And the same thing we have on the other side to teach them, to listen to boys run. Around the girls is the filler. You can ignore that. You just have to listen to boys run, girls run.
Yeah, Tom Rainer, Tokyo. The other thing that you have to be careful of, especially if you're a guest caller overseas, is to speak very clearly, because you are speaking with a different accent in the English than what the dancers are used to hearing. So it's very important to be very articulate in your speaking so that there's no confusion and they're trying to figure out what did they just say, you know.
The same thing goes the other way around. If I'm here, I have an accent too. And because of my... oh, thank you. Oh, how... I pay you later on the dinner, okay? Thanks. No, and I speak, because of my language, I speak fast. And really I have to be careful, the same thing the other way around. But it's really right. If you don't know the English language and you have a different accent, you have to be much, much more careful. Like leave out filler words when you come to us. Just call the plain calls and then see what you can add. But first need to build the confidence. Let me just finish the traits, the teaching thing, and then we can go ahead. What we have, we said that before, we have written translations for the people, so they can, for the dancers. We have that in German, for German language, and Swiss has the same thing. We have German is the main language in written, so it's the same thing. But I also give my dancers, I give them checkers, especially now for slow learners, if we talk for slow learners, where they can make their own checkers. You know, they take a poker game, use the queens and the kings. Make the heads, you just have to make sure which is the facing direction, and you can actually move the calls you learned, which is it's a helpful hint for all people who are slow learners. And the dancers, they really take that. If dancer doesn't learn that fast, they normally want to learn it. So they take the time and do the homework. And internet resources, and what we also, a good thing is to use, they're called singing calls. You know, there are CDs available, hopefully often with patter also. We try to see that the dancers get them, because if Joey Justin comes, they normally buy all the mainstream, the plus tapes, so they can listen to at home and learn to listen. Because that's what they really have to do. They have to learn to listen and find out the calls, because we taught them. And that's, I think, the difficult part.
We make them available to them, but they must purchase them.
Yeah,
we do not give them music. Don't get the wrong idea there. Right? They must purchase them, but they are legal CDs that guest callers, or we have some European callers that have some and offer them for sale at big events. Yeah. But for sale, not to share.
That's surely but we actually have to put them the point that they should do that, because this is really helpful for newer dancers to learn to listen, especially start with singing calls. Listening to singing calls from other callers. It's easier. Singing calls, patter is the next step. But so they learn to listen. And for sure, yes. They go on, I'm not sure, you can buy it on dosado.com, or you can talk to the callers who come over and get them through them, like Cherry Cheston, like other ones. Our own people too. So that's, yeah. Yeah, I think that's about the thoughts on the teaching part, especially now, on the language part.
I'm going to pass this from Europe to Asia, and we'll let Masaru Wada and his translator Tak take over for teaching in Japan.
Good morning. Ohayo gozaimasu. I'm sorry, I can speak not smoothly. I will ask to Mr. Tak Ozaki. Okay? Translation me. Wake up.
I think I have to have some kind of limitation on that. So I think I need to speak in Japanese.
まず最初にですね、これをお持ちですか?
First of all, he just wanted you to have his handout.
これに 日本のスクワダンスの状況およびポイントのところが書いてありますので、それを読んでいただければよろしいかと思います。で、私の方はまず新しい人たちにどういうふうにスクワダンスを教えていくかということを中心にお話ししたいと思います。
Actually, what he wanted to say is, on this handouts over here, but he just would like to point out some kind of way to how to teach that square dance to new dancers, new Japanese dancers.
まず最初に私がスクワダンスを習い始めたのは今から53年前です。
So he just started learn square dancing like 53 years ago.
それでその時の私の先生がここにいるミスター・カール・シムスです。
So his teacher is Carl Sims over there.
彼は日本のスクワダンスの発展のために種をまいた非常に重要といいますか貴重な人です。
So he's the kind of very important person to start square dancing, spreading square dance activities in Japan.
ここにも書いてありますけれども、現在日本には約1万5千人の愛好者がおります。
Excuse me, as it says over here, Japanese square dance membership for Square Dance Association just counts 15,000 approximately.
そのうちの約 80% の人は、女性です。
Out of here, 80% would square dancers are like women, lady square dancers.
それはどうしてかというと、日本の社会構造といいますか、いわゆる男性の人は、仕事優先といいますか、趣味の世界というのが、第2番目のというような位置づけになっていますので、どうしても男性の人は仕事がある意味で、リタイアするとか区切りがついたところから、ダンスに入ってくるケースがありますけど、ほとんどは女性が最優先でこういう趣味の会に入ってきてます。
So this is the kind of cultural and system over there in Japan. Men working and ladies just stay home to take care of children and home furnishing things.
そして現在では約、ダンサーの平均年齢はだいたい60歳前後だと思います。
So average square dance ages, over there in Japan is like approximately 60 years old.
特に、だいたい年齢的に言えば40歳の後半から現在の60歳、70歳の人たちというのは日本の教育システムの問題もありまして、その英語を話すというような人は非常に少ない。
So this generation is because of social system over there in Japan, quite a few Japanese square dancers they have to learn English, but they don't speak English. So they can read English, but they don't speak mostly. So right now, just average square dancers age, as he said, 60 years old. This generation is like very limited in English. Still working.
It's Rich again. I was just wondering if the people that are attending the square dance classes are still working age or retirement age?
Mostly 60, 60歳ぐらいの人たちというのは大体まだその仕事をしているのか、それともリタイアしているのか。
日本の場合の女性ですと仕事をしてない 最近は仕事を続けているっていう人もいますけれども、まあ大体が家庭の主婦が多いと。
Mostly, they just about at the retiring age, but for the ladies staying at the home is now mostly they're not working. Ladies are not working, but
まあそういう人たちがその英語を話す、また英語を理解するということに対して大変苦手な部分がありますから、我々がスクワダンスを教えていくときにその英文のディフィニッションであるとか英文のティーチングティップス、こういうものを読んだり理解をさせるというのは非常に難しい。
So they also have a very hard time to read the definition in English or just some explanation in English. They're very hard time. They're very hard to read those in English. So
そのためにテキストとしてはですね、こういうような絵に描いたこういうテキスト、これはベーシックプログラムですけれども、メインストリームはこういうようなテキスト、こういうものを応用するクラブが多いです。
So the association just made that these kind of booklets written in cartoons, like or pictures, like textbook. So they have to learn. They don't have to read English. They just see whatever that this looks like. So seeing is believing type of things.
それでコーララブがベーシック&メインストリームディフィニッションというテキストを作成しました。でこれについてはですね、いち早く日本スクエアダンス協会はこれを日本語に訳しました。で、今コーララブが出している、こういうようなディフィニッション関係、それから、ARC レポート、それからティーチングティップス、こういうようなものについては全て日本語に翻訳をして、ダンサーが入手できるようにしています。でなおこの内容の翻訳というのはそのほとんどがタコ崎がしたものです。
So Japanese Square Dancers Association just made that the CALLERLAB issued the definition booklet in Japanese. So as long as the association wanted, knows they're very important, they must interpret or they must translate into Japanese. So kind of definitions of MS or plus, they just wanted somebody translate into Japanese. Mostly I'll do it, but those because of the time limited, few other Japanese square dancers will also make a translation.
日本では初めてスクワダンスを習う人たちにはベーシックプログラムをまず最初に教えます。
Firstly, they wanted to square dance, learn to square dance. We would teach basic programs first.
でこのベーシックプログラムをだいたい15回から20回に分けて教え込みます。
So this basic program is divided into 15 times. I mean, 15 to 20 times for basic programs.
ですから、この人たちにその英語の理解を初めから求めるということはできませんので、もちろん そのベーシックムーブメントを教えるときには日本語で丁寧に教えますと。
So when they have to learn basic programs, of course, the caller, well, we must teach those programs in Japanese.
例えば、1 and 3, up and back, and arm and left you corner, ground right and left, right and left, meet your partner promenade, and get back home. その時にこういうような言い方をします。1 and 3 and the Japanese say 1組3組。
So the 1 and 3 means, ichi is like one, kumi is like a couple. So the callers has to say in Japanese like a ichi kumi, 3組。
Up and back.
Up and back.
全身交代。
Up and back is like a 全身交代, which is like a forward into the middle, and back up means 交代 in Japanese.
コーナー左手、アロマンレフト。
So they may say corner is like a corner, and the 左手 means left hand, and do arm and left.
パートナー右手左手、グラウンドライトンレフト。
The partner go right and left, like a right and left grand.
パートナーあったらプラムネー、meet your partner promenade.
So partner あったら means when you meet partner, promenade.
And get back home. お家へ帰りましょう。
Get back home means, 家へ帰る means go back home.
Yes.
In the straight, translation.
Yeah. And 1 and 3. Okay? 1組3組全身交代 up and back。コーナー左手アラマンレフト。右手左手パートナーグラウンドライトンレフト。Go right and left。パートナーあったら動作動。And プラマネードで帰りましょう。あなたのお家までと。こういうような日本語とその英語で特にですね、そのタームがあります。で、このタームは特に初めてスクワダンスを覚えた人たちにはあまり使えません。ですから、パートナーグラウンドライトンレフト、ライトンレフト、ミッチューパートナープラマネ、ミッチューパートナーカットして、Go right and left and promenade your partner will get back home ということで、踊るために必要な動作だけをできるだけ言うようにしています。
So they try to mostly try to omit, or just they don't say any feels, like only say is like a movement, a calls only, because the dancer just mixed up with calling too. So they just omit when you meet. You just do not say when you meet. Just have to say dosa or whatever.
So this is fascinating to me because I have never been in Japan. This is Don Casper, your moderator, by the way, for the recording session. So it sounds to me like you are not adding filler words, but you are actually using the Japanese translations plus the calls, and then as they progress, you leave out the Japanese translations so they get just the calls, and maybe even later you can add some English filler. Is that what I think that's what I'm getting here, and I think that's wonderful. Of course, gradually. Yeah, that sounds interesting.
一つは、その英語を話す、英語を理解するということに対して、日本人特有の苦手意識がありますので、特に初めてスクワダンスを覚える人については、その英語をですね、最小限に使って踊れるようなダンサーを育てる、そういうことに努力をしています。
So firstly, beginners square dances, they just try to learn through Japanese. So they just the caller, or we do not use as little as possible for the English words. So just try to as little least English as possible to let that beginners class people know.
日本にはスクエアダンス関係、いわゆるコーラー、クラブリーダー、それからダンサー、この人たちは日本スクエアダンス協会というところに全員がメンバーとして入ってます。
Mostly those, square dancers in Japan joined that association. Almost all they just joined that Japanese Square Dancers Association as a member.
でスクエアダンス人口を増やしていくというためにはどういう教え方をした方がいいか、どういうテキストが必要か、というような内容をですね、全国の講習会を開いたり、地域の講習会を開いたり、例えば東京都は東京都での講習を開いたり、こういうような活動をやっております。
So, they just try to increase the membership as many as possible. The association just has a lower organization, just like under the name of Japanese Square Dancers Association, we also have a kind of prefectural associations. So, just for example, the Tokyo Square Dancers Association will also do that the same beginners class.
ということで、そのスクエアダンス協会が一つの目標、スクエアダンス人口を増やそうという目標を立てたときに、コーラーもクラブリーダーもダンサーもその目標を共有化して、進んでいくというところに、日本の良さがあると思います。
So those association be set up by local clubs and club leaders and the callers and dancers just try to have such kind of object to increase square dancers in Japan. So that's those object is always remembered by the members, club leaders, club callers, and square dancers.
最後に、女性が 80% いますので、この女性の多くにですね、男性役をしてもらわなければなりません。
As he said, as we said before, we have 80% women dancers, lady dancers. So the ladies have to have dance as dance boys part. This is the must.
でこのためにはですね、どこのクラブでもビギナーズが終了するまで、またはメインストリームプログラムが終了するまでの間に、ほぼスタイリングとそのなんて言いますか、マナーとかこういうようなことを指導します。
As the also beginners class, those beginners class members were taught how to dance means styling, and the others, those mostly like styling is also taught.
そういう中で女性の男性役の人にカートスイーターンの踊り方を覚えてもらったり、それからパートナートレードをする場合に男性役としてその右肩がどっちにあるんだというような指導をしたりします。
So that lady is dancing a boy's part, they have to turn the ladies by courtesy turn, so that the callers or just the teachers must teach styling for courtesy turn for ladies dancing boys part.
現在では日本ではアメリカの方から非常にその有名な素晴らしいコーラを着ていただいて大きなパーティーを行っています。でその大きなパーティーでですね、アメリカのその素晴らしいコーラのコールテクニックでスクワダンスがこんなにも楽しいんだということをダンサーが感じて、そして自分の友達であるとか家族であるとかまたは会社の同僚にですね、スクワダンスがこんなに楽しいんだということでですね、新しい人たちを増やしてきたという経緯があります。今日あそこにいるパティ・グリーンも日本に来たことがあります。素晴らしいコールをしていただきました。そういうことで、そういうスカダンスの楽しみっていうのを今のダンサーが知ることによって新しい人を増やしていくという一つの糧になっていると思います。
So that the leaders in Japan also try to bring that the U.S. side callers to have that dancers to enjoy square dancing because their expression is very different, and also they are calling here in the United States. So just the Japanese leaders also try to bring U.S. side big name square dance callers to come to Japan and have those new dancers to enjoy how to square dance. So the leaders has to have that new square dancers to enjoy U.S. side square dance calling, and let those dancers know square dance is fun. So, which means that the square dancers population is also growing in Japan.
Thank you, Masaru. Any questions to Masaru? I'm sure, Jeannette, will you do or Doc, one of you do the mic running, because we need microphones. And tell us who you are and where you're from.
Masaru Hiraga from Japan. I think this was passed around. Have you seen this? There is a list of calls, 51 for basic, and this is a phonetic way of expressing the English words into a Japanese style. Okay, and everybody read like this. Circle left. This is for Japanese people, English already. But pronunciation, a little different, because a phonetic way of expressing the sound is, has a limitation. But still, in Japan, several words are used in this style. I mean, several English words known by everybody is expressed like this. So some calls itself understandable, I think. But think about the fact that the call name is just a code name, right? As not necessarily meaning how to move. So it's the same thing. Thank you.
How do you convince, Patty Green, Monroe, North Carolina. How do you convince ladies in your new class to dance the boys' part?
You have a mic here?
誰に男性役をやらせるかっていうのはクラブによって違いますけれども、 あるクラブはですね、比較的背の高い女性を男性役に、なってもらうというクラブもあります。それとまず、男性役を踊れるようにするためにはメインストリームまでをマスターさせて、そこから男性役をクラブとしてコーラーが選んでいくという場合があります。もちろん私は初めから男性役をやりますと、こういうスカートを履くのが苦手ですと、だから男性役をやると、そういうようなことで初めからですね、強くは言いませんけれども、そういうように背の高い人、初めから男性役を望む人、それからメインストリームまでを全部マスターさせてから、この人は男性役やっていただいた方がいいという、コーラーの方針で決める場合があります。
So mostly the club leaders or callers who is teaching basics, they ask those ladies who is a little bit taller than the average, and also who is very good at dancing, at this club. So that mostly club leaders and teachers, the callers, ask those ladies to be a boy's part.
I believe Walt had a question.
Yeah.
Walt Burr, Munich, Germany. Is it okay if we divert away from teaching dancers into teaching callers for just a second? Okay. Question for Wada-san, and I'll come over by TAC because I think TAC will have to translate. If I may, I've had the pleasure of meeting several of the callers from Japan, and I was very impressed by their level of knowledge and ability. How do you deal with terms like phaser and things like that in your caller schools, things that are unique to square dancing? How do you handle these during caller training?
In other words,
You all know what phaser is, right? Formation, arrangement, sequence, and... Walt, microphone.
When you're training your new callers, do you require them to know a certain amount of English before they start? Or do you encourage them to learn more English during training, things like that?
クラスをやるときにね、いろいろファーザーっていうけども、フォーメーション、それからアレンジメントってあるじゃないですか。それはどういうふうにみんなに教えていくのか。
どのように教えるかというよりも、ディフィニッションに書いてあるまずスターティングフォーメーションを理解させて、そして次にボディの部分をやって、それからエンディングフォーメーション、終わった体系、これを分かりやすく、私の場合には指導するときに 70% はモデルを置いて見させながら指導していきます。
So mostly they just consult with the CALLERLAB definitions like a starting formation and ending formation, such kind of things. But his case, he said that he's going to use some kind of pilot squares and let those beginners dancers to see or show and learn through watching those pilot or just angel squares. So let them do those angel squares.
Now, to answer your, well, you know the situation in Europe, Walt, but this is for the people that have not been there. ECTA, the European Callers and Teachers Association, does have English as its first language, as its official language, which is kind of wishy-washy when everything has to be turned into the German governments for approval and all that stuff. But we do encourage our callers to use more English, especially if they want to go out and travel and go to other countries and call. Like a German caller going to Czech Republic or to Sweden would not get far with German language. He has to teach in English.
Maybe we have an education program in ECTA. And this is actually when you do the test there, you either do the test in English or you're required to take another seminar which is English keywords. So that we kind of try to enforce the callers. We can't force them to learn English. We can't. But you can kind of enforce them to learn the important square dance English. And that's the way actually we tried doing it, with just adding either do the test in English or do a seminar which actually includes English keywords.
We never enforce, we encourage.
Encourage.
Yeah, it's Rich again. What is people's interest in learning English? How excited are they? Something they don't want to do?
Well, I can for Europe. Obviously, English is a language of the world, and you see products. I mean, most of the advertising thing there is English, and there's a lot of English put into advertising. Some of your companies will have English as their business language, and as Jeannette said, people growing up now, coming through schools now, they always will learn English as a second language to their native language. Now, in my corner of Germany, a lot of people will learn French because it's just across the border. So they may even learn their native German plus French plus English. Learning a new language is something that Europeans like to do because it gives them a chance to travel. Even though we have one monetary unit now for most of Europe, we still have all those languages. And with the opening towards the east, there's even encouragement to learn Russian, to learn Serbo-Croatian, and things like that. Walt. Don't go away.
Waldorf, Munich, Germany. ECTA, which Don and Jeannette and I all belong to, actually runs a seminar called English for Leaders. All right, to help our less experienced leaders, and my wife and I teach that. That's why and it's actually we teach terms like when you're emceeing a dance, the proper English terms to introduce people, the things like terms they use when they're teaching. So it's actually a formal seminar that we run. Wada-san, arigato.
So, any other questions at the moment? And I'd like to come. Tom?
More of a comment. I think what we heard here today is square dancing is very vibrant in both European countries and in Japan. And they're coming up with creative ways to address a lot of issues within square dancing. So it behooves the larger community, I think, to tap into that knowledge. And the more ways we can do that and share how they're tackling tough problems or how they've handled the situation with the percentage of women to men and percentage of dancers and new clubs coming online and everything. I just think it just emphasizes the need for a lot of feedback between the international square dance communities and the United States square dance communities. Right?
Thank you.
So, and I also have a handout here in an outline form of what I'm going to talk about. Some of this will mirror exactly what Jeannette was saying, because we're kind of in the same area. We're not that far apart from each other, actually. When people come to square dance open houses and to classes, sometimes they have a misconception of what square dancing really is. I know the Western scene, the cowboys and Indians and ranches and horses and cowboy hats and boots and big belt buckles. There's a lot of Germans that love that. We even have Western clubs like that. There's a couple near where I live where they actually go on a weekend and do horseback riding and roping and things like that. So what they're seeing is the old stereotype of barn dancing, hillbilly type thing. And they may not be aware of all the styles of music that we actually use in modern Western square dancing. So at open house, I try to at least do a couple of those Western numbers, and there are songs, Some Broken Hearts Never Mend. Everybody in Germany knows Some Broken Hearts Never Mend. Yeah? Or you do an Elvis number, All Shook Up, and they all knew who Elvis Presley is. So that gets them going. Some people come there, and square dance is not really what they thought it would be. They're actually looking for country and Western dancing or line dancing, and we do have addresses, phone numbers we can give them to point them in the right direction if they've come to open house and see this is not exactly what they want. We don't say, no, they'll go away. We encourage them. Yeah, did you like what you saw? If you want to, come back again. Because we don't charge for open houses. We let them come a couple of times before we nail them for a class. The language problem, Jeannette talked about that. It's the younger dancers versus the older dancers. The younger dancers are learning other languages in school, so it's easier for them to communicate, to pick up on that. The older generation has not learned English. And in Germany, we have the situation now because of, thank you to the reunification, we've had clubs springing up in East Germany where local dancers from their towns in Leipzig, in Chemnitz, in Magdeburg, in Rostock, they didn't learn English because after World War II, what they learned was Russian, besides their native German. So, and to them, this is the West has opened up. We get a new culture. We get American culture finally in those cities. And so they're embracing that. And that's why you do see a lot of clubs popping up over in that area. And of course, callers too. And believe me, if you've ever heard a caller call with a Saxony accent, Sächsisch, that's totally different. That would be like a Texan calling up in Maine or something like that. Hard to understand too. As the older dancers come into the class, you as callers have to realize they're not going to learn as fast as some of the kids that come in there. Like they were saying this morning too, in timing, in doing singing call figures. Kids are going to pick up and they're going to want more. They're going to want more swings. They're going to want more do-si-dos. Older generation will be happy just to get through the figures. And literal translations do not help. If I say Viereck durch, rechts und links durch, Ausscheren nach links und Riesenrad, you don't know what that is. But what I just said was square through 4, right and left through, veer left, and yeah. So literal translations do not help. However, at the very basic level, things like do-si-do, promenade, even allemand left comes from the French. So those that know a little bit of French have a little bit of an advantage at the beginning there too. Do-si-do literally means back, do-sa-do, back to back. Promenade is to take a walk, faire une promenade. So I try to throw in a little bit of French there at the beginning too. And of course, grand means it's going to be a big figure. Grand right and left or a grand square is going to be a big figure involving everybody. Sometimes we have problems with the definitions because they do get too technical when we teach. We've got to kiss as much as necessary and as little as possible. I like that. KISS means keep it simple, stupid. Tell them what they need to know. Don't make it too complicated. If someone actually comes up and says, I'm not understanding this, when you say turn a half, then you show turn exact 180 degrees for the mathematicians. You're looking at that wall. Now you're looking at that wall to show them geographically where they are in the room and things like that. Those are little helps that we can give. Demonstrating. As the Japanese wrote as Masaru wrote in his paper, have a demonstration square out there. If you want to teach, show them what you exactly want with a square through. Take right hand, turn in a quarter, take left hand, turn in a quarter. Show them with a demonstration. Box the net. What is the hand hole for box the net? It's easier to show them than to try to explain, well, your fingers are cupped and you're like a knuckle coupler on a railroad. And it doesn't help. Show them. I think a lot of people will learn more by showing it than by actually explaining some of it. Some calls will go by much faster if you just show it. We do provide translations, as I said, in the books of the definition. I mean, translations of the definitions. We do give them the books that they can look at. We can, say the definition in English, especially when you get to the upper levels. Then and you're teaching and you're doing like the hinge, fold, follow, and peel. You can translate all. They know what that is then. some of the commitment problems that we have in Europe are the same as you have everywhere. And this is where you may lose some of your beginner dancers if the guy works shifts at, let's say, BASF chemical company, and he can only really be there. He can be there. He says he can be there twice out of the 3 shifts that he works. So you say, okay, should work. You have the material. You can check up on that. You can review. Then he's only there really one time of the 3. He can, because he's free before. He doesn't have to go to work until after the square dance. So he's mentally fit for that. Some of the other times he's tried to come is when he's just come off of work. So sometimes he may be late because he had to stay longer at work, and he's not really with it because he's just come from work and he's got to switch off the work mode in his brain to go to the dance mode. So he struggles on those nights. Those are problems that we have sometimes too. And there have actually been people who've tried that and have said, no, we're not making it. We're not doing it. It's been theirs. It's not been the caller saying, you're not getting it. It's a communication then between the individual dancer and the caller saying, what do you think? Can we give you extra help? Can we maybe meet on another night, or can you come a little early on the night that you can come because you're not coming straight from work, and we can review what we did the last week, things like that. Of course, school is a problem with the younger kids. Can they come and dance on a school night if the club night starts at 7:30 and goes till 10? Or the class night starts at 8 and goes till 10. Is it feasible for them to come when the next day is a school day? You have to take those things into consideration too. Other interests in the family. Do they, besides square dancing, do they go bowling? Do they go on camping trips, hiking trips? Do the young people that are in there, maybe they have other interests. They play a musical instrument. They're active in sports, soccer, basketball, whatever. Problems that you're faced with, but I think you're faced with those everywhere. That's just not a European or a North American problem. That's today's modern day and age. People are interested in doing as much as they can. We in Europe also have a different ratio of men to women. It's not as extreme as Japan. It's not 80%. I would definitely say it's 60 to 65%, I would think, are women. At least I'm talking now Germany, continental Europe. So we do encourage the ladies to dance to men's part. Again, we encourage when they come, we say, maybe some of you ladies that are here, especially if you see that you've got eight ladies and 2 men coming for your class, some of you ladies maybe would like to dance the man's part. And if you do, continue to dance the man's part. And maybe next time you can come back and learn, you can come back for the next class and learn the ladies' part. If you'd like to, and there are some people who do that, and when we come to big dances, they dress up as men with a blouse that looks like a Western shirt and jeans, and they're dancing the man's part. In the class themselves, we have sashes, we have ribbons, as the Japanese do. We have blue ribbons for those dancing the men's part, red ribbons for those dancing the girl's part.
Maybe as an add-on, if you have younger people, if you have 2 younger ladies in there, they maybe even want to switch during class because they are young enough. That's an additional challenge.
Yeah, they want
to
learn both
parts at the same time. And so they have an additional challenge. So you can kind of, that's the way it works with us too. So, just as an interest.
Yes, and I mean, one of the big questions people ask is, do I have to come with a partner? And while it is a partner's activity, I'm not necessarily going to say a couple's activity, but singles are definitely welcome to try. I mean, for the open house and for the class, we leave it up to them if they want to continue or not. But they are definitely welcome, and we encourage our angels to say, yes, you are welcome, and tell the students to, yes, you may be getting this other person's husband or wife as a partner now during the class, but please do not expect that once you have them as your partner, they will be your partner all the time. And we encourage mixing. Don't dance with the same person all the time.
This is something which is different to a lot of places in the States, that normally in my area, they dance the first and the last tip with the partners, if they are as couples. And in the meantime, everybody dances with everybody. So the singles are really welcome, and I think that's a very nice thing we have.
Yes, and also do not, encourage them. You're ahead this tip, next tip, try to be aside. So you're used to dancing from a different position and know where your position is in the square. I mean, there's some people. Well, I always want to be looking at the caller. it may be an issue, of being more confident when I see the person talking to me rather than he's screaming at my back. As I said, giving extra time to those who need it, maybe before the class night, or if you can make an arrangement to meet on another day, or give them extra help. And of course, while they're there, you as a caller know which ones are getting it, which ones are a little slower, so you can see if you can mix. Now, don't say, George, I want you over there, but maybe you say, can I have couple number 1 from there, switch with couple number 1 from that square or something? So you know which, and believe me, as a caller, even visiting a big event or something, by the second tip which square is going to make it and which isn't. So, but always be courteous. Never talk down to the dancers. And some dancers have issues with positioning in the square. That's why we always have to teach that your most powerful tool are these things right here. Well, first of all, you got to know what you're expected to do, but your powerful tools are these, and you got to use them correctly. Right and left through this way, ocean wave this way, star through, which is one of the big pet peeves that I have. People try to take a hand like this for a star through. Say, no, palms up. Where are the stars? Up there. Where do your fingers point? To the stars.
You swear. You swear.
You swear? Hand, like I said, hand position. Or if they have problem, what is 3/4? Cast off 3/4. Count the walls. Huh? Count the walls. When you teach trade, you're saying trade is you're going to change places, but you're going to step in exactly the footprints of the other person. So where his toes or her toes were pointing, that's where your toes need to be pointing now when you're done. Or run, the same thing. A run, you will always move forward, and when you're done, you'll be facing the wall that was behind you for a run. Things like that. I know. A little bit of, you have a question, Rich? Give him the mic. I just wanted to finish then by talking a little bit about the structure of how our clubs and our organizations.
So before you move on to that, I'll sneak my question in.
Yes.
My dancers, for whatever reason, have an awful time learning right and left through. Despite the fact that I use it often, I feel like I have to teach it from scratch. As late as lesson 10 or even lesson 13, I remember having to teach right and left through from scratch to my seniors.
Okay. One of the things that we do, and this is regardless if it starts from facing couples, where we have the problem in Europe is mostly when it comes out of an ocean wave, let's say after spin the top or something like that. When we teach, well, obviously before we teach right and left through, we teach courtesy turn. And courtesy turn is with the partner. It is with the person facing the same direction as you are. So you must look sideways. Where is that person first? And of course, courtesy turn at mainstream means a boy will always turn a girl. So boys, look, where is that girl beside you? Actually, it's one of the figures I think we could get rid of and just teach wheel around. But that would be the starting thing, is you're always working with the person beside you. And when we get to the ocean waves and you've got them in the wave, everything, don't let go of hands, but take a step back, a half a step back, just extend your arms. Now look who is facing the same way you are. That is the person you're going to courtesy turn if you do this move from ocean waves.
Maybe ask you, where's the problem for the dancers? The first part, the right pull by, or the courtesy turn? Because one of the problems I found out, the same goes with square through, is the hand. If you don't let go of the hand, for the man it's actually easy. He kind of turns toward the same position. But the lady's part, if she doesn't let go, she goes away. That's the same thing actually for square through. I think I need to teach my dancers that letting go of the hand is about before shoulder or before the side.
Before the hand passes your side,
you let go early, and that's, I think, a problem I have mainly also on square through. So they slower dancers like to, if they have a hand, they don't want to let go of the hand. So they are happy, I have a hand, but this actually gives other problems. So maybe that could
And square through, it's not the first hand that gives the problems, it's the second one, always. because there you've got that left hand and you don't want to let go, so you're going to turn left instead of turning in.
And if you want to show the man how the feeling is, start with left. Work on the left square through, because then the man. If you talk about the normal arrangement, the normal position, man left, lady right, man have the same problem when it comes to the left square through.
Okay, I would just like to touch a little bit about what the structure is here in continental Europe. Our dancers are organized under the umbrella of EAASDC, or EAASDC as we call it, European Association of American Square Dancing Clubs. Now, the American refers to American Square Dancing, not American clubs. They are the organization that coordinates the music licensing. The callers do not do that in Europe. It is the dancers organization that does that. All the clubs belong to the European Association of American Square Dancing Clubs. They have a calendar with 2 big events a year. One is the Spring Jamboree, usually in the second weekend of March. Fall Roundup, which is Labor Day weekend. Besides that, they also put on a Student Jamboree, which is the last weekend actually ECTA, the Callers Association, puts that on. Our Callers Association, ECTA, puts on the Student Jamboree. The last weekend in March. We have the Round Dance Festival in May, and we also have Clogging Convention and Contra Convention for the other.
We may, yeah.
For the other dance forms that we have under our umbrella.
We actually have, which may be special than to the American, is that we have square dance, round dance, clogging, and also prompting under the same umbrella.
Contra and traditional together, yes.
And contra and traditional, yes.
As I said, Callers Association puts on the 4 events that they do: Student, Round Dance, Clogging, Contra Convention, plus our own ECTA Convention, which is the last weekend in June, unfortunately, coinciding mostly with the National Convention. The European Association of Square Dancing Clubs does 2 big events. That is the Spring Jamboree, the Fall Roundup. Used to be 4, but they weren't getting the numbers to support all 4. So they've concentrated on those 2. They coordinate what we call charter dances, which are dances that have happened year after year. They're like on their 40th year, 50th year. Special themed dances. No other dance can take place on that weekend. Among those are Valentine's Castle Dance, Frankenstein Castle Dance around Halloween, things like that. Especially themed dances. They also coordinate the calendar that there are no 2 dance events within 100 kilometers of each other, 50 kilometers of each other. So, and they encourage dancers to go out and participate. Once you're a member of a club, you can go visit any other club without paying any charge. We don't have donations at the door for dancers coming in. It's for our club nights. You just pay the membership fee for that club. So if you're a member of Club A, you can go visit Club B. Now, you shouldn't visit them every week, because then I think Club B will say, why don't you come join us too? But that's how our structure is in Europe, in continental Europe. And I know Sweden and Czech Republic are about the same. Our class structure is such that most of the classes start in September. That's usually because in Germany, school vacation, 6 weeks of school vacation for the kids is like mid-July to early to mid-September. So you'll find people want to get away from their usual activities and go actually have a vacation somewhere. However, that is an encouragement for them to go visit other square dance clubs once they've learned too. So you'll see a lot of traveling at that time of year. We are out of time, so if you have any questions, we'd be glad to answer them. But other than that, go ahead and enjoy your break. We do have handouts. The one from Masaru. And you should have that. We have a handout from Jeannette, Thoughts on Square Dancing, on teaching overseas. And mine says, Teaching Square Dance in Germany. And please feel free to pick those up. I know mine and Jeanette's were on the USB stick that was handed out. So thank you all for being here. And a big hand for our panelists here, Jeannette Staeuble, Masaru Wada, arigato, Masaru-san. Enjoy your lunch.